I do think that there is something just undeniably cool about watching a computer use itself. Of course, it can also be quite unsettling. A computer that can use itself can cause a lot of harm, but I also think that it can do a lot of good.
I said, go to DoorDash and get Mike some lunch. It decided to send him tacos from a taco place, but I said order enough for 2 people, and so it ordered 2 tacos. And this is one of those places where the tacos are quite small.
Operator said, get your portion size under control, America.
Operator, information, give me Jesus on the line. Do you know that one?
No. Do you know Operator by Jim Croce?
No.
Operator, oh, won't you help me place this call?
Well, Casey, call your agent, because today we're talking about AI agents.
Why do I need to call my agent?
I don't know. It just sounded good.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the effort. But yes, Kevin, because for months now, the big AI labs have been telling us that they are going to release agents this year. Agents, of course, being software that can essentially use your computer on your behalf or use a computer on your behalf. And the dream is that you have sort of a perfect virtual assistant or coworker. You name it. If they are somebody who might work with you at your job, the AI labs are saying, we are building that for you.
Yeah. So last year, toward the end of the year, we started to see kind of these demos, these previews that companies like Anthropic and Google were working on. Anthropic released something called Computer Use, which was an AI agent, a sort of very early preview of that. And then Google had something called Project Mariner that I got a demo of, I believe in December, that was basically the same thing, but their version of it. And then just last week, OpenAI announced that it was launching Operator, which is its first version of an AI agent. And unlike Anthropic and Google's, which, you either had to be a developer or part of some early testing program to access, you and I could try it for ourselves by just upgrading to the $200 a month pro subscription of ChatGPT.
Yeah, and I will say that as somebody who's willing to spend, money on software all the time, I thought, am I really about to spend $200 to do this? But, in the name of science, Kevin, I had to.
Yeah. At this point, I am spending more on AI subscription products than on my mortgage. I'm pretty sure that's correct. But it's worth it. We do it for journalism.
We do. So we both spent a couple of days putting Operator through its paces. And today we want to talk a little bit about what we found.
Yeah. So would you just explain what Operator is and how it works?
Yeah, sure. So Operator is a separate subdomain of ChatGPT. Sometimes the ChatGPT will just let you pick a new model from a drop-down menu, but for Operator, you got to go to a dedicated site. Once you do, you'll see a very familiar chatbot interface, but you'll see different kinds of suggestions that reflect some of the partnerships that OpenAI has struck up. So, for example, they have partnerships with OpenTable and StubHub and All Recipes, and these are meant to give you an idea of what Operator can do. And frankly, Kevin, not a lot of this sounds that interesting, right? Like the suggestions are on the order of suggest a 30-minute meal with chicken, or reserve a table for 8, or find the most affordable passes to the Miami Grand Prix. Again, so far, kind of so boring. What is different about Operator, though, is that when you say, okay, find the most affordable passes to the Miami Grand Prix, when you hit the enter button, it is going to open up its own web browser, and it's going to use this new model that they've developed to try to actually go and get those passes for you.
Yeah, so this is an important thing because I think, when people first heard about this, they thought, okay, this is an AI that kind of takes over your computer, takes over your web browser. That is not what Operator does. Instead, it opens a new browser inside your browser, and that browser is hosted on OpenAI's servers. It doesn't have your bookmarks and stuff like that saved, but you can take it over from the autonomous AI agent if you need to click around or do something on it. But it basically exists. It's a browser within a browser.
Yeah. So one of the ideas on Operator is that you should be able to leave it unsupervised and just kind of go do your work while it works. But of course, it is very fun, initially at least, to watch the computer try to use itself. And so I sat there in front of this browser within a browser, and I watched this computer move a mouse around, type the URL, navigate to a website. In the example I just gave, actually search for passes to the Miami Grand Prix.
Yeah, and it's interesting on a slightly more technical level because until now, if an AI system like a ChatGPT wanted to interact with some other website, it had to do so through an API, right? APIs, application program interfaces, are sort of the way that computers talk to each other. But what Operator does is essentially eliminate the need for APIs because it can just click around on a normal website that is designed for humans and behave like a human, and you don't need a special interface to do that.
Yeah, and now some people might hear that, Kevin, and start screaming because what they will say is APIs are so much more efficient than what Operator is doing here. APIs are very structured. They're very fast. They let computers talk to each other without having to, for example, open up a browser. And as long as there's an API for something, you can typically get it done pretty quickly. The thing is, though, APIs have to be built. There is a finite number of them. The reason that OpenAI is going through this exercise is because they want a true general purpose agent that can do anything for you, whether there is an API for it or not.
And maybe we should just pause for a minute there and zoom out a little bit to say, why are they building this? Like, what is the long-term vision here?
Sure. So the vision is to create virtual coworkers, Kevin. This is the North Star for the big AI labs right now. Many of them have said that they are trying to create some kind of digital entity that you can just hire as a coworker. The first ones, they'll probably be engineers because these systems are already so good at writing code. But eventually, they want to create virtual consultants, virtual lawyers, virtual doctors, you name it.
Virtual podcast hosts?
Let's hope they don't go that far. But everything else is on the table. And if they can get there, presumably that there are going to be huge profits in it for them. There are going to potentially be huge productivity gains for companies. And then there's, of course, the question of, well, what does this mean for human beings? And I think that's somewhat murkier.
Right. And I think there's also, it also helps to justify the cost of running these things because $200 a month is a lot to pay for a version of ChatGPT, but it's not a lot to pay for a remote worker. And if you could, say, use the sort of next version of Operator, or maybe 2 or 3 versions from now, to, say, replace a customer service agent or someone in your billing department, that actually starts to look like a very good deal.
Absolutely. Or even if I could bring it into the realm of journalism, Kevin, if I had a virtual research assistant and I said, hey, I'm going to write about this today, go pull all of the most relevant information about this from the past couple of years and maybe organize it in such a way that I might, write a column based off of it. Like, yeah, that's absolutely worth $200 a month to me.
Okay, so Casey, walk me through something that you actually asked Operator to do for you and what it did autonomously on its own.
Sure. I'll maybe give like 2 examples, like a pretty good one and maybe a not so good one. Pretty good one was, and this was actually suggested by Operator, I used TripAdvisor to look up walking tours in London that I might want to do the next time I'm in London. When I did that...
When are you going to London?
I'm not actually going to London.
Oh, so you lied to the AI?
And not for the first time. But here's what I'll say. If anybody wants to bring Kevin and I to London, get in touch. We love the city.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, Operator, sure, let's do it. Let's find me some walking tours. I clicked that. It opened a browser. It went to TripAdvisor. It searched for London walking tours. It read the information on the website, and then it presented it to me. Did that within a couple of minutes. Now, on one hand, could I have done that just as easily by Google? Could I probably have done it even faster if I'd done it myself? Sure. But if you're just sort of interested in the technical feat that is getting one of these models to open a browser, navigate to a website, read it, and share information, I did think it was pretty cool.
Yes, it's very trippy to see a computer using itself and going around like typing things and selecting things from drop-down menus and like...
Yeah, it's sort of like, if you think it is cool to be in a self-driving car, like this is that, but for your web browser.
A self-driving browser.
It is a self-driving browser. So that was the good example.
Yes. What was another example?
So another example, and this was something else that OpenAI suggested that we try, was to try to use Operator to buy groceries. And they have a partnership with Instacart. The CEO of Instacart, Fiji Simo, is on the OpenAI board. And so I thought, okay, they're going to have like sort of dialed this in so that there's a pretty good experience. And so I said, okay, let's go ahead and buy groceries. And I went into Operator and I said something like, hey, can you help me buy groceries on Instacart? And it said, sure. And here's what it did. It opened up Instacart in a browser. So far, so good. And it started searching for milk in stores located in Des Moines, Iowa.
Now, you do not live in Des Moines, Iowa, so why did it think that you did?
As best as I can tell, the reason it did this is that Instacart defaults to searching for grocery stores in the local area, and the server that this instance of operator was running on was in Iowa. Now, if you were designing a grocery product like Instacart, and Instacart does this, when you first sign on and say you're looking for groceries, it will say, quite sensibly, "Where are you?"
Right.
Operator does not do this. Instacart might also offer suggestions for things that you might want to buy. It does not just assume that you want milk.
Wow, I'm just picturing like a house in Des Moines, Iowa, where there's just like a pallet of milk being delivered every day from all these poor operator users.
Yes. So I thought, okay, whatever. This thing makes mistakes. Let's hope that it gets on the right track here. And so I tried to pick the grocery store that I wanted it to shop at, which is, in San Francisco where I live. And it entered that grocery store's address as the delivery address. So like it would try to deliver groceries, presumably from Des Moines, Iowa, to my grocery store, which is not what I wanted. And it actually could not solve this problem without my help. I had to take over the browser, log into my Instacart account, and tell it which grocery store that I wanted to shop at. So already, all of this has taken at least 10 times as long as it would have taken me to do this myself.
Yeah, so I had some similar experiences. The first thing that I had Operator try to do for me was to buy a domain name and set up a web server for a project that you and I are working on that we can't really talk about yet. But
Secret project.
And so I said, go research available domain names related to this project. Buy the one that costs less than $50, the best one that costs less than $50, and then buy a hosting account and set it up and configure all the DNS settings and stuff like that.
Okay, so that was like a true multi-step project and something that would have been legitimately very annoying to do yourself.
Yes, that would have taken me, I don't know, half an hour to do on my own. And it did take Operator some time. Like I had to kind of like set it and forget it, and like I got myself a snack and a cup of coffee, and then when I came back it had done most of these tasks.
Really?
So, yes, I had to still do things like enter my credit card number into like take over the browser and enter my credit card number. I had to give it some details about like my address, like for the sort of registration for the domain name. I had to pick between the various hosting plans that were available on this website. But it did 90% of the work for me. And I just had to like sort of take over and do the last mile.
And this is really interesting because what I would assume was it would get like, I don't know, 5% of the way and it would hit some hiccup and it just wouldn't be able to figure something out until you came back and saved it. But it sounds like from what you're saying was it was somehow able to like work around whatever unanswered questions there were and still get a lot done while you weren't paying attention.
Yeah, so it's sort of, it felt a little bit like training like a very new, very insecure intern, because like at first it would keep prompting me. It'd be like, well, do you want a .com or a .net? And eventually you just have to prompt it and say like, make whatever decisions you want. Like,
wait, you said that to it?
Yes, I said like only ask for my intervention if you can't progress any farther. Otherwise, just make the most reasonable decision.
You said, I don't care how many people you have to kill. Just get me this domain. And it said, understood, sir.
Yeah, and I'm now wanted in 42 states. Anyway, that was one thing that Operator did for me that I thought was pretty impressive.
I have to say, that feels like a grand success compared to what I got Operator to do.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. I also had it send lunch to one of my coworkers, Mike Isaac, who was hungry because he was on deadline. And I said, go to DoorDash and get Mike some lunch. It did initially mess up that process because it decided to send him tacos from a taco place, which, is great. And it's a taco place. I know it's very good. But I said, order enough for 2 people. And so I ordered 2 tacos. And this is one of those places where the tacos are quite small.
Operator said, get your portion size under control, America.
Yeah, so then I had to go in and say, does that sound like enough food, Operator? And it said, actually, now that you mention it, I should probably order more.
Wait, no, so here's a question. So in these cases where you're...
And I know what you're asking. Did operator tip the DoorDash delivery person?
And did they tip the DoorDash delivery person?
Sure did. $7.
Okay, pretty good tip.
Yep.
So let me ask you this. When you're buying from Amazon and from DoorDash on using Operator, is the first step that you log into your account? Because it doesn't have any of your payment details or anything. So at what point are you actually sort of teaching it that?
It depends on the website. So like sometimes you can just say up front, like, here is my email address or here's my login information, and it will sort of, log you in and do all that. Sometimes you take over the browser. There's some privacy features that are probably important to people where it says, OpenAI says that it does not take screenshots of the browser while you are in control of it, because you might not want your credit card information getting sent to OpenAI's servers or anything like that. So sometimes it happens at the beginning of the process. Sometimes it happens like when you're checking out at the end.
And so were you taking it over to log in, or were you saying, I don't care, and you just were giving operator your DoorDash password in plain text?
I was taking it over.
Okay,
Yeah.
smart.
So those were the good things. I also, this was a fun one. I wanted to see if Operator could make me some money. And so I said, go take a bunch of online surveys. Because, there are all these websites where you can get a couple cents for filling out an online survey.
Something that most people don't know about Kevin is he devotes 10% of his brain at any given time to thinking about schemes to generate money. And it's one of my favorite aspects of your personality that I feel like doesn't get exposed very much. But this is truly the most Roosian approach to using Operator I can imagine. So I can't wait to find out how this went.
Well, the most Roosian approach might have been what I tried just before this, which was to have it go play online poker for me. But it did not do it. It said I can't help with gambling or lottery-related activities.
Okay, woke AI. Does the Trump administration know about this?
But it was able to actually fill out some online surveys for me, and it earned $1.20.
Is that right?
Yeah, in about 45 minutes.
Okay. So if you had it going all month, presumably you could maybe eke out the $200 to cover the cost of Operator Pro?
Yes, and I'm sure I spent hundreds of dollars worth of GPU computing power just to be able to make that $1.20. But hey, it worked. So those were some of the things that I tried. There were some other things that it just would not do for me, no matter how hard I tried.
Like
one of them was to I was trying to update my website and put some links to articles that I'd written on my website. And what I found after trying to do this was that there are just websites where Operator is not allowed to go. And so when I said to Operator, go pull down these New York Times articles that I wrote and, put them onto my website, it said, I can't get to the New York Times website.
I'm going to guess you expected that to happen.
Well, I thought maybe it has some clever workaround, and maybe I should alert the lawyers at the New York Times if that's the case. But no, I assumed that if any website were to be blocking the OpenAI web crawlers, it would be the New York Times.
Yeah.
Because, let's put in a little subtle disclosure here, the New York Times is currently suing OpenAI and Microsoft over copyright violations related to the training of AI models.
It's the first time hearing of this. I'll be interested to see how that plays out.
But there are other websites that have also put up similar blockades to prevent Operator from crawling them. Reddit, you cannot go onto with Operator. YouTube, you cannot go onto with Operator. Various other websites. GoDaddy, for some reason, did not allow me to use Operator to buy a domain name there, so I had to use another domain name site to do that. So right now, there are some pretty janky parts of Operator. I would not say that most people would get a lot of value from using it, but what do you think?
Well, I do think that there is something just undeniably cool about watching a computer use itself. Of course, it can also be quite unsettling. A computer that can use itself can cause a lot of harm, but I also think that it can do a lot of good. And so it was fun to try to explore what some of those things could be. And to the extent that Operator is pretty bad at a lot of tasks today, I would point out that it showed pretty impressive gains on some benchmarks. So there is one benchmark, for example, that Anthropic used when they unveiled computer use last year, and they scored 14.9% on something called OS World, which is an evaluation for testing agents, so not great. just 3 months later, OpenAI said that its Kua model scored 38.1% on the same evaluation. And of course, we see this all the time in AI, where there's just this very rapid progress on these benchmarks. And so on one hand, 38.1% is a failing grade on basically any test. On the other hand, if it improves at the same rate over the next 3 to 6 months, you're going to have a computer that is very good at using itself, right? So that I just think is worth noting.
Yes, I think that's plausible. We've obviously seen a lot of different AI products over the last couple of years start out being pretty mediocre and get pretty good within a matter of months. But I would give one cautionary note here, and this is actually the reason that I'm not particularly bullish about these kind of browser-using AI agents. I don't think the internet is going to sit still and allow this to happen. The internet is built for humans to use, right? It is every news publisher that shows ads on their website, for example, prices those ads based on the expectation that humans are actually looking at them.
Yes.
But if browser agents start to become more popular and all of a sudden 10 or 20 or 30% of the visitors to your website are not actually humans, but are instead Operator or some similar system, I think that starts to break the assumptions that power the economic model of a lot of the internet.
Now, is that still true if we find that the agents actually get persuaded by the ads, and that if you send Operator to buy DoorDash and it sees an ad for McDonald's, it's like, you know what, that's a great idea. I'm going to ask Kevin if he actually wants some of that.
Totally. I actually think you're joking, but I actually think that is a serious possibility here, is that people who, build e-commerce sites, Amazon, et cetera, start to put in basically signals and messages for browser agents to look at on their website to try to influence what it ends up buying.
Yeah.
And I think you may start to see restaurants popping up in certain cities with names like Operator, pick me, or order from this one, Mr. Bot. And that's maybe a little extreme, but I do think that there's going to be a backlash among websites, publishers, e-commerce vendors as these agents start to take off.
I think that is reasonable. I'll tell you what I've been thinking about is, how do we turn this tech demo into a real product? And the main thing that I noticed when I was testing Operator was there is a difference between an agent that is using a browser and an agent that is using your browser. When an agent is able to use your browser, which it can't right now, it's already logged into everything. It already has your payment details. It can do everything so much faster and more seamlessly and without as much handholding. Of course, there are also so many more privacy and security risks that would come from entrusting an agent with that kind of information. So there is some sort of chasm there that needs to be closed, and I'm not quite sure how anyone does it. But I will tell you, I do not think the future is opening up these virtual browsers and me having to enter all of my login and payment details every single time I want to do anything on the internet, because truly I would rather just do it myself.
Right. I also think there's just a lot more potential for harm here. A lot of AI safety experts I've talked to are very worried about this, because what you're essentially doing is letting the AI models sort of make their own decisions and actually carry out tasks. And so you can imagine a world where an AI agent that's very powerful, a couple versions from now, decides to start doing cyber attacks because maybe some malevolent user has told it to make money, and it decides that the best way to do that is by hacking into people's crypto wallets and stealing their crypto.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of reasons that I am a little more skeptical that this represents a big breakthrough. But I think it's really interesting, and it did give me that feeling of like, wow, this could get really good really fast. And if it does, the world will look very different.
Hey, that's the end of this clip. If you liked what you saw, head on over to our page and subscribe, and you can get the full podcast. We do a show like this almost every week on tech and the future. Head on over there now and subscribe.